again and welcome to this, it is another small attempt to go deeper into the history of the Moor race and to continue to share and understand ourselves, the legacy of this race. So in the last video we shared a little bit about the first two races and the fact that the human experience is holographic in the sense of renovating the whole experience of creation since the first unicellular organisms to the fifth race. And we have shared information about specifically the two first etheric races, the first and the second, that were waiting for the earth to be ready to receive the solar angels in the physical realm, and at the same time had to start combining and experiencing different possibilities of life in more subtle or etheric realms, so that the solar angels that were descending to physicality could progressively adapt to forms of manifestation until they could reach the physicality of third dimension here on the surface of Gaia. So what happens after the second race? Well, after the second, the third race appears, and this is really what is known as Lemur, that comes from the French term les mu, okay? Les mu, the mu, Lemurian, okay? And then there was a whole set of confusions with the animal lemur that inhabited the region that the lemurs will inhabit, but has nothing to do with the race, okay? So the race is called Muh, M-U-H. It's a third race, and it's the third race, but it's the first race, number one, to be completely physical, okay? The descent of the solar angels reach now the period where the earth is prepared. There's already, it works with the minerals, it works with the vegetables, it works with the animals. There's now an atmosphere to breathe oxygen. There's now the possibility of interchange. There's things to eat, there's water to drink, there's all the physical possibilities to sustain a human, or muh, to sustain a physical body, okay? And where do they live? They live in a region that is now an ocean, but used to be a whole continent called Lemur. And this, the central point, the central region is placed deep in the center of the Indian Ocean, of what today is the Indian Ocean. So that there was a huge continent in the past, and this huge continent had land that extended over the area that today is known as Australia, New Zealand, regions of the Pacific Ocean, and all over to the other side of the map. Imagine that we have our Earth, no? And we look at it like an open map, the planisphere that we are used to look at. You have the Indian Ocean, and you have Australia, Japan, all the Pacific islands, the Pacific Ocean, and then we come to the other side, and it also included areas of the western coast of America, North, Central, and South America. Okay? This race was completely physical, we said that, but they didn't have a mind. Mind in Sanskrit, in the ancient Vedic tradition, is called manas, okay? Manas. And the mind is a principle that allows us to interact with reality, but also sets a division from outside and inside. Well, this third race, Muh, in the beginning did not have a mind. They have three main things that were U, M, or M, U, H, the same, three letters. And in the sacred languages, each letter represents a principle. Its sound, not just a letter, represents a principle. A whole principle that set the characteristics of the concept. So this race, M, U, H, Muh, was constituted by three things. M was the material principle, all that came from matter, from the mother. Okay? M. H was the spiritual principle, all that came from the solar angels that were descending and now reached the physical plane. And then the hue, okay, this hue, and this hue that is really like a chalice, okay, this is the fusion mechanism that results from the interaction of the spirit and matter, and that is the soul. So in this race, in the Muh race, there was a complete equilibrium, poise of the material forces and the spiritual forces through the interaction of the presence of the soul. So there were solar angels with conscious of unity living a physical experience on earth. Okay? When there's no mind, there's no division between inside and outside. Mind, manas, is a principle of discrimination, like an organ that allows us to compartmentalize reality to understand it. But when mind appears the first division between I am and the rest. Okay? So the mind, don't misunderstand me, is of huge relevance for the experience of continuity of consciousness. The acquisition of a mind is a very delicate point in any evolution of any experience of conscious life, not just humanity, anywhere in the cosmos. Why? Because when the mind appears and the notion of me and you, or inside or outside, appears, the races are huge conflicts. This is what's happening today on the earth, on planet Earth. Wars, deep emotions, separativity, non-inclusivity, but it's the appropriate step to move forward in this line that will ultimately lead you to become yourself a creative being, a creator yourself. The creation happens through the mind, and they speak the universal mind, the mind of the creator. But in the process to reach the full potential of becoming yourself an individual creator, you have to incorporate a minimal manas, a minimal mind, and you have to start to test with your mind, with a huge risk of ending the whole line of experience of that of that creation. So mind was necessary. It brought division. We need to go back to reincorporation of living with the mind in unity. So this is why the huge, great, luminous masters of the Mu rays come today with this message of unity to remind us that we can live in unity with the mind. So coming back to Mu, another concept to explain is that Mu and Hum are the same concepts. These rays call themselves both Hum and Mu. When the principle that predominated was material and matter principle, they called themselves Mu. They were mostly living in unity and living from the heart. And in that time, they were mentored by great masters and light beings, mostly from the Pleiades. Pleiades was the main civilization that was mentoring us from outside Earth. Okay? And later in the race, when they started to dominate the masculine principle in the experience, when the positive principle started to take over, they used to call themselves Hum. And this period, the mentors were coming mostly from Sirius. I say mostly, not completely, but mostly from Sirius. And in these second periods, the focus was no longer in the heart, but was in the brain. Why? Because the brain had to develop to be able to incorporate the mind. Okay? So one thing is the brain. The brain is the physical organ. Another thing is the mind. The mind is a technology from subtle words that inhabit this physical brain. For the physical brain to be developed enough to welcome and sustain the mind, for the brain to be able to be a receptacle for the mind, these rays had to alienate more within the head and with a masculine principle and get mentorship from great masters of brain and mind that are Syrian civilizations. So there was this transition from Mu to Hum, and when the brain was developed enough and these beings were, even if they were living in unity, they had climbed up the stairs of their chakras to centrate their consciousness more in the brain, the manas principle could descend. When the mind descended, they slowly started to compartmentalize reality and to look reality from the glasses of individuality. Okay? So, starting from a way of functioning that was collective, comparing it to the way that many insects live their lives with a collective mind and a unified field of thoughts. From this unity of mind and consciousness, from this functioning in the collective, when they receive the principle of mind, the Hum with manas, with mind, turn into Hum-manas. Hum-man. Okay? Hum-man. So this is when the first real humans, the matter with spirit linked by the soul, receive the manas, and then starts another phase of experimentation with the mind. Okay, and they go out of this collective ocean of unity to start compartmentalizing reality and dividing themselves from the rest, and starting to experience life as unity of consciousness and not collective consciousness. Okay, until then, the Mu, the initial Mu, had a physical body, a physical reality, but were completely in tune with higher realms. They had a poise in the soul, they were living as souls, they had a poise in the soul of complete equilibrium between spirit and matter. With the appearance of the mind, the balance is now shifted, this scale is shifted, and all the physicality, the division of the physical bodies, the objects and the existence is prevalent, and they go from unity to diversity. Okay? And they leave this place of consciousness, of equipoise, to deep low in the matter. Okay, so this today has been a lot of experience. I'm very thankful for everything that was transferred through me. The way I do it is I take some minimal notes and put in a line a list of concepts that I want to share with you, so that I can follow a line and I don't forget anything. But mostly information is flowing as I speak, and as I get in tune with the more great masters that are working with us. We're closed for today. It's already dark night. In Montreal, the snow is still there. We're still in winter, but we're still here at the foot of Hatum, this ancient sacred place of the Mu race. We will leave all these knowledges to settle. Please do revisit the videos and go back to the first one if you need. Please do ask any question. I know there's a lot of information, and again, we are going to realms that are dark back in ancient times in history, so maybe there are concepts that are difficult to explain, or even they're not logical from a scientific point of view. But again, if you want to share anything, or if you want to put forward any question or do any query, or just share information you may have, do not hesitate to do this. And keep tuned with us. In the next chapter, we will trace into mythology. The most recent mythology for us is the Greek mythology. So we are going to track the presence of the Muhbin, the great giants and the Olympian titans in the Greek mythology. Until then, have a wonderful time. We stay in touch. Take care of yourself, and thank you once again for being there and being the pole that allows this energy, all this information, all this ancient wisdom to flow down from higher realms, from masters of light to us. Thank you very much.